The Thousand Sunny cut across a calm, open sea. The waves whispered against the hull. The deck was quiet. Too quiet. Where there should have been wild stories about giant goldfish and island-eating moles, there was only the creak of wood and the distant cry of gulls. No rubber captain laughing at an obvious lie. No sniper on the rail pretending to be a fearless warrior while his knees shook. This is not the story the audience knows. Because on this Sunny, there is no Sogeking mask drying in the sun. No scattered tools from late-night tinkering. No Usopp. At Water 7, he threw down his challenge, fought his captain over the Going Merry, and walked away. In this timeline, he never apologizes on that bridge, never pulls a mask over his face at Enia's lobby, never sprints back onto the ship with that desperate, shaking smile. The moment he turns his back on Luffy, it stays turned, permanently. But what if that one choice doesn't just change a friendship, but the entire future of the Straw Hats? Just how much of their power, their stability, their very humanity was resting on the shoulders of the crew member everyone called the weakling? Usopp wasn't just background comedy. He was their sniper, their inventor, their trapmaker, the guy who quietly upgraded Nami's climate tact and armed the crew with gadgets that turned impossible battles into winnable ones. More than that, he was the most human Straw Hat on the battlefield of the Grand Line. The first sign of danger never came from hockey or observation. It came from Usopp's shaking hands and racing thoughts that mirrored exactly what the audience felt. Terror, doubt, the urge to run. He was the emotional pressure valve, the one who could scream the fears no one else would admit, and then still pull the trigger when it mattered. When that human heart is ripped out of the crew forever, the tremors don't stay inside one ship. What happens to Luffy's leadership when the friend who challenged his stubbornness is gone? Who stands on the Tower of Justice and burns the world government flag if there is no Sogeking to turn that moment into legend? Without Usopp's shots covering the retreat, without his lies about bravery slowly becoming real, does Robin still get pulled back from the darkness? Or does Eni's lobby end in a very different kind of silence? And that's only the beginning. Remove Usopp, and the aura of the crew changes, going into Thriller Bark, Sabaody, Dressrosa, and even Wano. And no Usopp to outplay Perona's ghosts. No sniper to crush Sugar's grip on toys and topple Doflamingo's entire system. No Pop Greens raining down in Onagashima's war. The crazy part was that this weak crewmate held threads that connect all the way to the future Pirate King. So, in this universe, does Luffy still become the man who will beat Kaido? Or does the world get a different Pirate King? If it gets one at all? Rules of the what if. How one man holds a crew. Together, to understand how far that change reaches, the rules of this what if need to be brutal and clear. The canon timeline holds all the way through Water 7. Every laugh, every lie, every shared meal stays the same. Then, the duel happens. Luffy versus Usopp over the Going Merry. In this world, the wounds never close. Usopp loses, refuses to apologize, and walks away. No mask? No Sogeking. The moment the Straw Hats sail for Enia's lobby, he never steps on the Going Merry again. That single decision locks the entire future into a harsher shape. There is no mystery sniper on the Tower of Justice, no flag-burning declaration to the world government, no reunion on the new ship. From that point on, this is a crew permanently missing one of its pillars, and a man forced to chase his dream without the family that made him brave enough to try. To see what that really means, his role has to be broken down layer by layer. On paper, Usopp is the sniper. Long-range control of the battlefield is his job. He tags Spandam from a tower away, crushes Sugar's composure from an impossible distance, and harasses Perona's body while his spirit is elsewhere. He shapes fights before the enemy even realizes he's there. But what if that angle of attack simply doesn't exist anymore? Every later war becomes a closer, riskier, bloodier brawl. Beyond that, he is the gadgeteer. He takes Nami's basic climate tact and turns it into a weather-controlling weapon. He engineers dials, traps, and eventually Pop Greens that let the crew fight giants, pacifistas, and Yonko subordinates. Thanks to his new ability as an inventor, the Straw Hats keep punching above their weight class. Remove that mind, and the upgrades stop coming. Nami's storms hit softer, crowd control vanishes, and Onigashima never sees a jungle of instant plant artillery raining down in the chaos. Underneath the firepower and tools, though, sits his most dangerous ability, being the emotional anchor. Usopp is the one who shakes, panics, and says the things everyone else is too proud to say. He is the first sign that a plan is insane, the voice that asks, "Can we really win this?" When he still moves forward anyway, it gives the entire crew permission to be terrified and brave at the same time. Oda has called him the most human Straw Hat for a reason. Now compare that to the turning points he actually drives. Perona's ghosts would have left Zoro and the others useless. Sugar's toys would have stayed enslaved, Dressrosa never freed. Doflamingo's entire system intact. At Enies lobby, no one burns the flag. No shot announces war on the world government. Those moments are not jokes. They are structural supports for Luffy's rise. So without that sniper, that inventor, that coward who grows, the stakes explode. Just how much of the new world collapses without the man who quietly holds threads together? In this timeline, some arcs stop being desperate victories and become outright impossible missions. Some allies never join. Some enemies never fall. And out there on a different ship, one version of Usopp still walks toward being a brave warrior of the sea. But alone. As the story moves past Water 7 and into Enies lobby, Thriller Bark, and beyond, the tremors from his absence start hitting one by one. The next step is to see where the first cracks appear, and which Straw Hat breaks first when their most human mirror is gone. The trigger, a different choice at Water 7. This is where everything breaks. Water 7 is already a battlefield of emotions. Luffy stands across from Usopp in that empty dock, the going merry between them like a wounded comrade. Usopp is shaking, but not from fear this time. It is pride, humiliation, and the terror of being left behind. Luffy's voice doesn't waver when he says they need a new ship, yet every word lands like a cannonball. He is the captain. He has to destroy the illusion that Mary can keep sailing. The duel is brutal not because of power, but because of history. Every trick shot, every impact dial, every desperate feint is Usopp screaming that he still belongs on this crew. The moment he collapses, defeated, the canon timeline gives him a crack of hope. Under the mask of anger, he secretly wishes to apologize, to crawl back and accept Luffy's hand. But what if that tiny, fragile desire never appears? In this timeline, the first sign of real divergence is not a punch. It is a thought. As Luffy walks away, Usopp stares at the Mary's burned deck and decides that the captain did not just abandon a ship. Instead, he abandoned him. Luffy's decision becomes proof that weak links are disposable, that a sniper with a long nose and shaking hands was never truly a Straw Hat. That warped belief hardens faster than any steel Frankie could forge. Days pass. The Aqua Laguna recedes. Frankie forges the Thousand Sunny, a ship so full of power and promise it feels like an awakening for the crew's future. In canon, that new beginning is sealed by Sogeking's ridiculous entrance and a desperate apology. Here, the dock stays quiet. No mask, no song, no last-minute sprint. The Sunny pulls away from Water 7 with one empty spot on the deck. Nami grips the railing so hard her knuckles turn white, eyes locked on the shrinking harbor. Chopper leans over the edge, crying out Usopp's name until his voice breaks, as if sheer volume can drag their friend onto the ship. Luffy stands at the bow, hat shadowing his eyes, the aura of a captain who won the duel but lost something far more important. Zoro watches all of this and does not move. For him, respect for the captain is absolute. If Usopp chose pride over the crew, then that is the end of it. Yet the crazy part was that this unshakable stance does not strengthen the crew here. It isolates him. Nami and Chopper start avoiding his gaze. Sanji's jokes die quicker. Tiny tremors run through their unity that no one wants to name. So when the Straw Hats sail into Enies lobby, they are already cracked. They still declare war on the world government. They still raise their heads toward the Tower of Justice. But without Zojiking on that roof, without the sniper who would shoot down the flag and the fear in their hearts, can Robin even be saved? Or does this war end right here? Enies lobby without Sogeking, a rescue on hard mode. Enies lobby still erupts into war, but the opening shot is wrong. In canon, a ridiculous hero song leads into the cleanest declaration in the entire series: burn the flag, spit on the world government, and turn rescue into revolution. Here, that rifle never fires. Luffy still steps forward on the courthouse roof. He still has the rage, he still has the will. But what if there is no masked sharpshooter at his side? No Sogeking anthem building the courage of an entire crew? When he orders the flag shot down, there is only silence and the howling wind over the battlefield. No one can make that shot. Nami has no weapon with that range. Franky's arsenal is brutal but crude at this stage, built for close impact. Not surgical sniping. Zoro and Sanji can destroy anything they reach, but the flag is high, distant, guarded. The first sign that Usopp is truly gone is that the symbol of war stays untouched, fluttering above them like a verdict. They still declare war with words, but the sky itself never answers. The aura of that moment dims. The Straw Hats are not the crew that shot down the world government's pride. They are just pirates screaming at a fortress. From there, every step gets harder. Without long-range cover, the assault on the Tower of Justice turns into a meat grinder. In canon, Usopp's sniping harasses enemies, buys seconds, creates openings. Here, every enemy has to be beaten face to face, and every second costs blood. Chopper's monster point becomes a true last resort. There is no ally watching from afar. No voice to guide panicked Marines fire away from him. He rampages longer, draws more artillery, and the Buster Call ships answer with brutal precision. Nami is forced into close-quarters combat far more often, stretching her early climatact beyond what it was designed to do. Robin, once freed, has to walk through a battlefield with no invisible guardian, picking off threats before they reach her. And that freedom sequence, it changes completely. Spandam does not get terrorized by a phantom sniper he cannot see. There is no shot that surgically breaks Robin's handcuffs. Instead, the crew must punch straight through the judicial tower while the Buster Call closes in. Franky tanks more hits, dragging Robin forward. Zoro and Sanji burn Hakuless stamina, carving through wave after wave of Marines and agents. Luffy reaches Robin later, with the sea already exploding behind them. Robin still screams that she wants to live. That awakening of her will is too powerful to be destroyed. But just how much darker does it feel when there is no absurd hero theme, no Sogeking pointing at the sky to turn fear into laughter? The crazy part was that they still win. Robin is saved. The flag stands, but the gates fall. Yet the cost is higher. Deeper wounds, closer calls with the Buster Call, and a Straw Hat crew that limps away instead of cheering. Luffy walks off that battlefield as a man who destroyed a government island. But he does not feel like the strongest rising pirate. He feels the tremors of what is missing. There is no coward sniper to brag about impossible shots, no liar turning war into a story. Only the empty space where Sogeking should have stood. And that absence doesn't end at Enies Lobby. It follows them to the next island, and to the ship that was supposed to carry their future. A Sunny without its lyre. Early Grand Line aftershocks. The Thousand Sunny sails out of Enies Lobby, shining and brand new, but the deck feels wrong. This is supposed to be the dawn of a new era. Instead, it feels like a ship that skipped a heartbeat. The first sign that something is off comes the moment they hit the Florian Triangle. Without Usopp, there is no constant voice saying, "This is a trap," every 5 seconds. There is no paranoid sniper scanning the fog, no walking early warning system who assumes the worst and prepares for it. So, when Thriller Bark looms out of the mist, the crew does not creep in. They stroll, they joke, they underestimate. And on that island, overconfidence is the fastest way to be destroyed. In canon, Usopp's fear acts like a pressure valve in a radar. Here, that radar is gone. Nami's sharp, but her focus is navigation and weather, not ambushes. Franky is bold. Zoro and Luffy treat the entire horror ship like another playground battlefield. The result is brutal. More people get separated, more traps are sprung. And the early encounters with zombies hit harder because no one is sniping salt into skulls from the shadows or calling out angles. The Sunny walks into Gecko Moria's territory with power, but without the aura of caution that kept them alive. Then Perona appears, and the real fracture shows. Her negative hollows are designed to erase confidence. In the original timeline, Usopp's crushing self-doubt turns into the perfect counter. But what if that human shield against despair never steps onto Thriller Bark? Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, even Robin are all people who move through the world with unshakable belief in themselves. That is exactly what Perona's ability feeds on. One by one, the strongest fighters collapse into useless, sobbing wrecks. Sanji's chivalry, Franky's bravado, Chopper's childlike optimism, all flipped inside out. Who can realistically stand? Nami's practicality helps, but she still believes in her own genius. Brooke's cheerfulness is a mask. Robin has endured torture, yet even she is not immune to being told her existence is worthless when the ghosts hit her from every angle. Without the one man whose negativity is already bottomed out, Perona does not get outplayed. She wins. And if she wins, Luffy never reaches Moria at full strength. As bad as Thriller Bark becomes, Sabaody is worse. The auction house is chaos incarnate, a living battlefield where one wrong shot can start a war. In canon, Usopp's cover fire and frantic tactical calls carve a path through Marines and slavers. Here, Luffy charges in with even less restraint. There is no sniper yelling distances, no mid-fight adjustments, no precise suppression fire keeping bullets off the weak. The result? More slaves die before the chains can even be broken. Some never get their collars off. Cammy's rescue is messier, slower, and the Celestial Dragon incident spirals even faster because no one is coordinating around Luffy's punch. Just how much more vicious do the Marines become when the pirates look disorganized instead of terrifyingly synchronized? By the time Kuma arrives, the crew's morale is already cracked. They lost a brother at Water 7. Thriller Bark turned their fear into a weakness instead of a weapon. Sabaody showed them that without their lyre, their brave warrior of the sea, they are strong but not whole. When Kuma starts erasing everyone from the battlefield, it does not feel like a sudden tragedy. It feels like the final confirmation that this crew was already breaking. For Luffy and Chopper, especially, this is a second abandonment layered on the first. The moment each friend vanishes, the old wound tears open. This is not just losing a crew. This is the universe proving that people leave and promises fail. And the crazy part was that everything up to Sabaody is still the easy mode of this nightmare. Because once the world splits them apart, story races toward Dressrosa and beyond, where Usopp's absence doesn't just make survival harder, it turns certain future victories from barely possible into utterly impossible. Dressrosa collapses, a world without God Usopp. Dressrosa is where that bill finally comes due. This is the first island where Usopp's absence doesn't just hurt feelings, it rewrites the entire battlefield. In canon, everything hinges on a coward forcing himself to stand. The moment he staggers into Sugar's chamber, Usopp is shaking, vomiting, begging to run. Yet that same fear becomes the trigger. His wild, desperate shot and that accidental, nightmare-inducing face do what no warlord or Yonko could do. They one-shot the linchpin of Doflamingo's entire system. Sugar faints once from sheer terror, and then again when God Usopp appears in the sky. Hod 2 collapses, one countrywide awakening. The first sign of her defeat is silent and horrifying. Across Dressrosa, toys drop their tools, their chains, their fake smiles. Bodies twist, gears crack, and in an instant, forgotten fathers, soldiers, and captains stand where dolls once stood. Kairos regains his human body and his name. The Underground Rebellion suddenly remembers its true general. It's not just a power shift, it's a memory quake ripping through the entire nation. But what if that keystone never existed? No Usopp? No terror shot? No God in the sky? Sugar stays conscious, calmly touching anyone who resists and turning them into more obedient toys. Kairos remains a one-legged soldier no one remembers. The dwarves fight, but their allies never materialize because no one recalls who they were supposed to rise up for. Yet the underground army doesn't explode into a revolution. It fizzles into scattered skirmishes that Doflamingo's officers quietly erase. That single change shatters the alliance. In canon, Luffy and Law ride a wave of freed gladiators, gangsters, and toy slaves who suddenly hate Doflamingo with everything they have. Here, there is no wave. There is no chaotic surge of bodies rushing the palace, no spontaneous mobs tearing down smile factories. Instead, the battlefield stays controlled, information tight, and perfectly tailored to Doflamingo's strings, both literal and political. He isolates threats, cuts communications, and turns Dressrosa back into a closed-stage execution ground. Without that sudden army, the birdcage becomes a death sentence. Every meter it shrinks is now contested only by exhausted Straw Hats, a wounded Law, and a handful of gladiators who never got their families back. Just how much more dangerous does that steel horizon become when there are no reinforcements pouring in from every street? Characters like Rebecca, Cavendish, or even Frankie pushing the factory alone start to look like real casualties, not comic relief survivors. Zoro can hold a wall, but he cannot hold an entire collapsing country. And the crazy part was that a surviving Doflamingo doesn't just mean one failed rescue. It means the underground weapons trade keeps flowing, the Smile pipeline keeps feeding Kaido, and the delicate chain reaction that weakens the Yonko system never truly starts. This isn't just a lost island. This is a preserved pillar of the old world, because if Dressrosa never falls, the next domino doesn't just hesitate. It turns and falls back toward Luffy instead, and the next arc in this nightmare proves exactly that. Big Mom's territory in Wano. Can Luffy still reach the top? Dressrosa falls back toward Luffy, and the next time he steps into Yonko territory, the sea is merciless. Whole Cake Island becomes the first real test of a crew that was never repaired. In canon, that arc is already chaos. Mirror world ambushes, assassination plots, a living army of sweets. But what if that chaos hits a Straw Hat team entering Big Mom's territory with a permanent hole in its lineup? No Usopp lenses on the horizon, no emergency gadgets, no last-second trick shots to clear a path when everything collapses at once. The first sign is control. Nami's Klimatact is frozen in an older state, never upgraded with Usopp's plant tech and precision dials. Her weather power is strong, but less surgical, less able to carve open the battlefield and shield allies at the same time. Chopper has fewer tools, fewer sedatives, fewer restraint mechanisms when the homies swarm. Every confrontation inside Totoland turns into a brawl at 10 meters instead of a coordinated assault at 100. Think about the seducing woods without a sniper overwatching the trees. Brulee's ambushes hit harder. The chess soldiers close in tighter. Luffy is forced to burn more stamina just to punch through basic formations that a single long-range barrage could have shredded. The moment he faces Katakuri, his margin for error has already been eaten away by a dozen earlier skirmishes that went badly by inches. And then comes Wano, the true war. The Onigashima is the kind of battlefield that was built for a sniper like Usopp. Layered roofs, shifting fronts, commanders weaving in and out of the smoke. Just how much pressure disappears from the rooftop fight if someone is constantly tagging flying Zoans out of the sky, blinding numbers, and sniping weapons from commanders before they can swing? Usopp could have pinned down King's flight paths, harassed Queen's artillery, and erased fodder squads before they ever reached the samurai lines. Thanks to his new ability with pop greens in cannon, Usopp can lock down entire corridors and protect the weak from getting overrun. Strip that away, and suddenly the scabbards bleed more. Samurai units that were barely saved in the original timeline are wiped out here. Tohoko, Otama, and other non-combatants rely on raw luck instead of precise cover fire. The alliance still surges, but the casualties spike, and every victory feels like it was bought with an extra grave. Under all of this runs something more subtle. Legend. Usopp is the one who keeps turning Luffy into a story even before the world can. His lies become prophecies. His exaggerations become headlines. Without that constant myth-building inside the crew, Luffy's aura spreads differently. The crew still believes, but there is less ritual around his greatness, fewer wild tales told in taverns and back alleys by a fast-talking sniper who was there. That changes Luffy himself. In this world, there is no Sogeking on Enya's lobby, no hysterical declaration of the man who will beat Kaido echoing ahead of him. Thus, Luffy has to carry his own legend without that external hype. Doubt creeps in at the edges. Not enough to break him, but enough to slow the awakening of the man the world expects. So when he finally clashes with Kaido, the raw power is still there. Gear 4th, Advanced Conqueror's Haki, the unbreakable will. Kaido can still fall. But the crazy part was that one less support pillar turns this from a narrow, desperate victory into a coin flip. A single missed opening, a single ally who dies because there was no bullet from the shadows, can tilt the entire war. In at least one branch of this nightmare, the alliance fails by inches. Not because Luffy is weaker, but because the crew behind him never became whole again after Water 7. Kaido survives, the flower capital burns. Yas and the story of the man who was supposed to be Pirate King ends on a rooftop drowned in storm clouds. And if that happens, what kind of world does a broken Luffy leave behind? And who rises to fill the void he couldn't? The crew's broken heart. Who replaces Usopp's role? The world that follows that rooftop isn't just weaker in power, it's hollow. Because the first crew member Luffy ever truly loses isn't some anonymous ally in a giant war. It's the long-nosed coward who walked away at Water 7 and never turned back. That loss doesn't heal, it calcifies. Luffy still laughs, still charges ahead, still declares he'll be the strongest on any battlefield he touches. But what if every big decision after that carries a hidden tremor? The moment he gives an order that risks someone's dream, there's a flash of Usopp on that bridge, screaming that a captain who can't protect a ship doesn't deserve a crew. Luffy never gets the catharsis of forgiveness, never bows his head to ask Usopp to come home, so a quiet fear hardens inside him. One wrong call, and anyone can walk away forever. Zoro thinks he did the right thing. He stood by the captain, drew a line, and demanded that respect for Luffy's authority be absolute. On paper, his stance is vindicated. In reality, it isolates him. Nami remembers Usopp crying over the Mary, remembers Zoro refusing to bend, and some small part of her never fully forgives that rigidity. Chopper hears Zoro talk about the crew like a unit, not a family, and something in his trust wavers. They still fight together, but there's an invisible crack in the aura between them, a fracture that no amount of training can destroy. Without the one person who shared her fear out loud, Nami changes too. Usopp used to be the one shaking beside her, turning panic into jokes and lies until they both could move again. Now, with that human shield gone, she leans harder into strategy and manipulation. She weaponizes information, pushes Luffy and Zoro into smarter positions, and treats the war against the New World like a numbers game she refuses to lose. Just how much warmth does she trade away to keep everyone alive? Chopper's shift is even harsher. Usopp was the only one who made being afraid feel normal. Without him, Chopper forces his own awakening in a way. He buries his cowardice, rushes into the line of fire, and stops admitting when he's scared. He becomes a more reliable doctor on the battlefield. But the crazy part was that some of his innocence dies with that choice. Robin feels the absence in the quiet moments. Usopp was one of the few who treated her like a normal friend, not a weapon or a scholar. No more casual lies about giants and goldfish islands to make her smile. Frankie, meanwhile, never gets that full shipwright sniper bond. The Sunny is still built, but there's no wide-eyed partner geeking out over every new cannon or plant-based upgrade. Thanks to his new ability to build anything the crew needs, Frankie becomes the perfect craftsman with no one who truly gushes over his work. So who becomes the heart of this broken crew? Nami's tough love keeps them moving. Chopper's empathy tries to patch emotional wounds. Brook cracks jokes and sings through the darkness. Jinbei brings stability, a calm center in the storm. But none of them carry that exact mix of fear, lies, and desperate courage that made Usopp the crew's human center. The Straw Hats still sail, still win battles, still shake the entire world. They just never quite feel like a family again. And out there, on some distant sea, the man they lost is changing too. The sniper who walked away, Usopp's solo journey. The first sign that this wasn't the same, Usopp the Straw Hats knew, comes in the silence after he walks away. No yelling, no jokes, just the sound of his own footsteps fading into the storm. He ends up in some forgotten East Blue port first, or on a broken rock in the first half of the Grand Line, half conscious and bleeding, clutching a busted slingshot like it is the last piece of his old life. He is broke, he is injured, and he is way too proud to crawl back. So he does what he has always done on every battlefield he survived. He lies, he aims, he tinkers. Usopp starts selling stories before he sells shots. He calls himself a legendary mercenary sniper, the man who can destroy an entire fleet with a single shot. At first, it is pure bluff. But what if those lies are the only shield he has left? When hungry pirates corner him in an alley, the moment he hesitates, he dies. So he does not hesitate. He rigs the trash around him into tripwires, oil slicks, and nail bombs, turning a dirty backstreet into a killing field. Soon, small-time pirate crews start to notice. Some want him as a mercenary sniper, a ghost on the mast who ends fights before they begin. Others, bounty hunters who stalk the Grand Line's weakest seas, hire him as a freelance marksman, paying for shots that take down targets from beyond the fog. And in the shadows, a revolutionary scout watches this scrawny liar build minefields out of scrap and plants, and reports back about a boy whose cowardice looks suspiciously like tactical genius. Any of those paths could claim him. On a pirate crew, he becomes the silent reaper who never stands on the front line but decides every duel with one unseen bullet. With bounty hunters, he learns tracking, reading wind, predicting panic, treating every island like an open-air laboratory. With the revolutionaries, he is drilled, pushed, and broken down until his fear becomes a weapon, his instincts sharpened into something close to an awakening of pure battlefield awareness. Thanks to his new ability to improvise under pressure, his pop greens evolve at a terrifying speed. The seeds that once just entangled now explode, or harden into armored vines, or release blinding spores that turn entire docks into confusion zones. His traps go from pranks to war tools. He studies tremors in the air, the way sound travels, the aura of killing intent before a shot. Just how much stronger does a sniper get when every missed shot means death? Psychologically, the war never ends. In every bar, he hears rumors of the Straw Hats, Luffy punching a celestial dragon, Zoro cutting steel like paper, Nami stealing entire weather systems. Usopp listens, heart pounding, caught between pride and terror. They are rising without him. But what happens if they fall because he is not there to pull a trigger at the right second? And then the whispers begin. A ghostly sniper. A man who can hit a Marine officer from beyond the horizon. A shadow who turns entire battles with one shot no one ever sees. The crazy part was that this time, the legend is chasing him, not the other way around. Somewhere out there, the boy who lied about 10,000 men is slowly becoming the strongest long-range monster the seas have ever feared. But who notices first? The Marines, the revolutionaries, or the Straw Hats he left behind? From coward to phantom, building the myth of Usopp. The first sign that Usopp is no longer just the coward who ran away comes the moment the world realizes he can hit you without ever knowing where you are. Cut off from Luffy's fists and Zoro's blades, he has no choice. If he wants to survive real war, his only path is awakening the strongest version of his Ken Bunshoku haki. Without frontliners to hide behind, he starts living on the edge of panic. But what if that constant fear becomes fuel? His heart never stops racing, his nerves never stop screaming, and over time that pressure forges something precise and terrifying. His observation. Haki stretches farther and farther until he can feel the faintest tremors of killing intent across an entire island, track breath patterns through smoke, follow a heartbeat through a blizzard. He doesn't just sense positions. He reads timing, hesitation, the instant an enemy thinks about pulling a trigger. Thanks to his new ability, his sniping stops being long range and becomes out of range. He fires at angles that make no sense, looses shots into empty sky, then watches a Logia user phase sideways directly into the bullet path they never saw. Just how much do you trust your devil fruit when your own instincts are being used as bait? But to exploit that, his environmental warfare evolves from simple traps into full battlefield gardens. Every island he stays on becomes seeded with pop greens and custom plants that lie dormant until he whispers their names. Vines that feel like ordinary undergrowth until they suddenly constrict around ankles. Shell flowers that open with a flashbang burst, overloading haki and vision together. Hallucinogenic pollen that bends depth perception so enemies misjudge distance and shoot at ghosts. He never stands in the open. He turns alleys, forests, and ruins into layered kill zones, advancing without moving an inch. One step forward for the enemy means 3 unseen triggers behind them, a rustle, a seed pod, then silence. Out of this comes a codified style. Phantom Sniper. Multi-stage shots where the first bullet is a marker seed. Yanash the second is a ricochet round that homes in on that seed through walls. And the third is a delayed impact ghost star that detonates only when the target thinks they've escaped. He names techniques like Mirage Volley, where he fires in a scattered pattern while his plants project moving silhouettes, and Black Truth, where he broadcasts lies mid-battle through hidden dials. Fake reinforcements, phantom bounties, imaginary Yonko flags on the horizon, until enemy morale collapses. Against big powers, he weaponizes knowledge, sea stone-tipped slugs hidden inside harmless-looking pop greens, binding creepers that react specifically to body heat, spikes from zone transformations, shock-absorbing moss that drinks up explosions, then redirects the stored force into a focused burst that can rattle even paramecia constructs from the inside. The crazy part was that Logias, who once felt untouchable, now fear the invisible sniper more than the swords in front of them. Soon, whispers spread. There is a man who never shows his face, who destroys entire units before they see a muzzle flash. Marines call him a human artillery piece. Pirates call him a curse. Usopp, The weakest straw hat fades, and in his place rises a phantom whose name is spoken like a bad omen before every major operation. But when that ghost story finally crosses paths with a familiar Jolly Roger, does the sniper aim away or straight through his past? When legends collide, a distant war without its sniper. The answer comes in a war that shakes the entire world. Picture a Marineford 2.0, not a rescue mission this time, but a final clash. Straw Hats, Grand Fleet, Nabi and allies charging straight at the world government's strongest forces. The Red Line groans, Mary Joie's tremors. Celestial dragons hide in bunkers while the sky itself looks ready to split. And right in the center of that collapsing battlefield stands Luffy, still carrying a scar that never healed at Water 7. He's stronger now, Gear 5th, Conqueror's hockey roaring, an aura that makes giants flinch. But what if raw power isn't the problem? The moment the fleets collide, the weakness isn't Luffy's fists. It's the empty space on the Sunny's rail where a long-nosed silhouette should be. Without a sniper, the Straw Hats' formation is brutal and direct. Zoro and Sanji punch straight into the enemy lines instead of moving under cover of invisible support. Jinbei and Frankie tank volleys that should have been shattered mid-air. Nami's eyes fly across the battlefield, trying to track every cannon, every sniper nest, every incoming barrage at once. Robin spawns arms on distant towers just to twist a single fuse away from ignition. They're winning ground, but at a cost. More burns, more blood, more last-second saves that come a heartbeat too late. Normally, Usopp's surgical strikes would quietly destroy the enemy's strongest angles. Now, Nami overclocks her climb attack to fake that missing ability, dragging lightning down on artillery lines until her stamina crashes. Robin's calm cracks as she's forced into a pure tactician role, mapping enemy positions while still fighting hand-to-hand. Chopper sprints between bodies, realizing the injury rate has spiked simply because no one is deleting threats before they fire. Then, the Phantom enters the war. The first sign is subtle. A Marine Vice Admiral lifts a Den Den Mushi to order a buster call, and the snail's shell explodes in his hand. Seconds later, a world government cannon line that Nami never even saw tilts harmlessly toward the sky. Its firing crews unconscious with neat welts on their helmets. Reports start flying, an unseen sniper sinking CP-0 transports, popping Seastone shackles off key prisoners, erasing command posts from miles away. Thanks to his new ability, this ghost never needs to be on the same island to destroy an entire strategy. Luffy feels it, not with observation haki alone, but in the rhythm. The timing of the saves, the way the shots don't protect a side, they protect people. He flashes back to Enia's lobby, to a mask on a tower, to a voice shouting that snipers are brave warriors of the sea. Just how much does it hurt that the pattern feels familiar, but the man is nowhere near his deck? Here's the crazy part. The Phantom's bullets save both pirates and Marines. A Celestial Dragon's escape ship detonates before launch, yet a random Marine recruit about to be crushed by falling debris lives because a single shot severs the beam. Are they ally, enemy, or something in between? The war tilts back and forth on those distant shots. An admiral falls because a critical opening appears. A Straw Hat survives because a cannon misfires at the perfect second. But the moment Luffy looks to the horizon, there is only smoke. No flag, no ship. Just a choice, made long ago in the rain of Water 7, echoing across the strongest war the world has ever seen. In the end, victory hangs on a razor's edge precisely because the man who should be laughing on the Sunny's deck pulled his trigger from somewhere else, or walked away from every flag entirely. The world that lost its lyre. Macro consequences. That choice doesn't just scar one crew, it warps the entire age. The first sign is on the political map. Enia's lobby still falls, but without the masked sniper on the Tower of Justice, the message is smaller, colder. The world government loses a courthouse, not a legend. There is no king of snipers setting a flag on the judicial sun. No fairy tale rescue that turns a declaration of war into a myth. The tremors hit the fortress, not the world's imagination. From there, every fault line shifts. Dressrosa's nightmare lasts longer because sugar never faints at the sight of a long nose on fire. And the toys keep marching. Doflamingo's strings stay wrapped around an entire nation for months, maybe years, before the balance finally breaks. Kaido, still supplied by that underground pipeline, becomes an even more entrenched emperor, his war factories fed by a kingdom that never truly wakes up. Just how much stronger does a beast become when the world fails to cut his supply lines in time? On paper, the Marines should be happy. In reality, something more dangerous happens. Without God Usopp, turning a single lucky shot into a divine act, the Straw Hat's reputation grows in a different direction. There is no sniper who defeated Sugar from half a country away and commanded giants with a shout. Instead of a crew of miracles, they become a crew of monsters. Admirals, Yonko, warlords, and an entire generation of rookies start to see them, not as living stories, but as a brutally efficient, terrifyingly mortal pirate band. That changes how everyone moves. Marines plan as if they are hunting weapons, not symbols. Pirates fear Luffy's flag, but do not whisper about impossible luck following in his wake. The aura of absurd, storybook protection around the Straw Hats never quite awakens. And that means more allies hesitate, more neutral islands stay neutral, and fewer people bet their lives on a captain who always pulls off miracles. But what if Usopp's lies, cut away from the Sunny, are weaponized somewhere else? If he drifts into the Revolutionary Army, the battlefield changes again. His ability to read people, craft gadgets, and manipulate perception becomes a quiet superweapon. Small skirmishes tilt when a single unseen shot destroys a supply cache. Sabotage operations succeed because a ghost sniper keeps erasing Cypher Paul officers the moment they give orders. Information wars turn vicious as rumors spread of a revolutionary who can shoot through the world's lies from beyond visual range. Thanks to his new ability to vanish into stories without a face, entire kingdoms might revolt, convinced a phantom guardian watches their first steps. And the crazy part was that the world government cannot put a bounty poster to the fear. There is no Sogeking mask on this path, just an absence that keeps killing their certainty. Thematically, the loss is even harsher. On the Sunny, Usopp is the proof that ordinary terror can coexist with extraordinary courage. He is the lie that becomes real through sheer will, not the weakling who stands on the same deck as gods. Remove him, and the crew tilts toward pure force. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, Robin, Frankie, even Chopper and Nami start to look less like a family with one terrified human at its center and more like a mobile natural disaster. The story of One Piece loses many of its reminders that shaking hands can still pull a trigger at the right second. This isn't just one man stepping off a ship. It is the world losing a specific kind of hope. The hope that stories, jokes, and lies can reshape reality itself. When that thread is cut, fear behaves differently. Courage evolves differently, and the entire era of piracy feels heavier. And yet, in a world without the Straw Hat's liar, one question hangs over every ocean. Whose story fills that vacuum? And what happens when that new story finally collides with Luffy's? Would you trade this tragedy for a stronger sniper? That vacuum splits the story at its core. In canon, that empty space closes. Usopp comes back. The moment he drops the mask, bows his head, and forces the words, "I'm sorry," past his pride. The crew's wound finally starts to heal. Luffy cries, the others laugh through tears, and the Sunny sets sail with its heart stitched back together. But what if that moment never happens? Then this darker branch becomes permanent. The first sign is Enia's lobby, already feeling different. No Zogjeking mask on the Tower of Justice, no ridiculous sniping miracle that shoots down the world government flag and announces war with a joke and a cheer. Robin still gets saved, but the rescue is slower, bloodier, with fewer tricks and more scars, and Luffy's aura as captain tilts further toward ruthless. From there, every arc bends. Thriller Bark, without the coward who fights Perona with rubber hammers, becomes a place where fear lingers longer and the crew takes heavier hits. Sabaody, without the frantic sniper covering retreats, turns the Celestial Dragon incident into an even more chaotic battlefield, where the tremors of Luffy's rage are not softened by a friend shouting from the sidelines. Dressrosa, without the man who snipes Sugar twice and destroys the entire factory plan with one slingshot, can outright fail, leaving Doflamingo in power and the Straw Hats broken in the shadows. By Wano, this Luffy is stronger, but also lonelier. He still awakens new levels of Haki, still challenges the strongest creatures in the world, still shakes Onigashima like a living quake zone, but his crown feels heavier. Thanks to his new ability to endure loss, he wins more cleanly on the battlefield and loses more quietly in his heart. The crazy part was that the victories look bigger on paper, yet the crew dinners feel smaller in spirit. So, would that trade be worth it? On one side stands a legendary solo sniper, a phantom of the battlefield whose bullets arrive before his name, who sells his ability to pirates, revolutionaries, or kingdoms and becomes a whispered weapon of war. On the other stands the messy, lying, crying Usopp, the weakest on paper who still shakes, still runs, and still plants his feet behind his friends when it matters most. Just how much does One Piece lose when that weaker Usopp never climbs back onto the Sunny? If the choice was yours, which version fits the heart of this story better? The terrifying, brave warrior of the sea who never returns, or the terrified one who does and grows in front of everyone? Drop your answer in the comments. Who replaces Usopp on the crew in your timeline? Where does he end up, and which arc do you think changes the most when his slingshot never comes back over that horizon? Share your branches because this what-if war of stories has only just started.